The Christ mystery and the story of the Contemplative Christ is one of the best stories anyone could ever hear. And it's a story intertwined into all other stories, which we'll go through now. All you need to do is use your contemplative intelligence to be still and go beyond your thinking to discover the reason for Jesus showing up on this blue marble that we call home. When it comes to Christianity, many people throw out the baby with the bathwater, and they make up their minds because of people's immaturity and shocking behavior and murderous intentions and judgments that Christians per se, or religious people, make on others. A divine character who was around 14 billion years ago, not just a few thousand years ago, to really show us several things. One of them was to allow us to understand and to be able to see in material form that eternal life is a gift. It's a free offering to live forever with God, the Creator. So He came to reveal God's true nature, and everything changed. And I mean everything. He began to perform miracles to heal the sick. He turned religion upside down, and He provided the perfect example of how to live a good life. A life with values that are innate in all of us when we grow up, own up and show up. A life where we develop enough self-love to grow and contribute and help others. To help the story of humility, grandiosity was amazing. To teach that the meek or the egoless will inherit the earth is one of the greatest stories ever told. So to understand the teachings of the Contemplative Christ, think about your ego. It's what I call your persona, the sense of I, or your personality, your identity. Now, in today's world, we're often pushed to build our personal brand, to stand out, to achieve as much external validation as possible. It's created a mental health crisis, chaos. And while a healthy self-esteem is crucial, an unchecked ego can become a real barrier to true peace and spiritual growth. It fuels judgment, comparison, anxiety, the constant need for control, and often a deep sense of separation. All anxiety is separation anxiety. But what did Christ teach us about this? Throughout His ministry, He consistently pointed away from the attachment to self. Think about the parables. They often critiqued those who clung to their wealth, their status, their perceived importance, their personas, their masks. He spoke of humility, selflessness, and a radical, unconditional love that utterly transcends personal gain. He wasn't interested in building an ego. Rather, He was interested in building a connection to something far, far greater. So if not the personality that creates your personal reality, then what? The Contemplative Christ is a path of profound renewal, a conscious, deliberate effort to reshape our inner landscape, to transform our minds and free our souls. And this isn't some abstract, unreachable ideal. It's a practical, everyday practice. It's life itself. Letting go of the old, the conformed mind, the selfish, garrulous ego, and discovering a new side of ourselves, powerful, inherent, eternal side of ourselves, our sacred selves. So let's break it down a little more. Renewing the mind. This is central. It's a teaching that isn't about intellectual acrobats or memorizing scriptures. It's about fundamental shifts in perspective. Christ challenged the conventional wisdom of His time. He taught contemplation, thinking about thinking, questioning ideas that people not only believed in but defended that were cruel, ridiculous. He encouraged people to look beyond the rigid letter of the law to its compassionate spirit. He called for self-reflection, contemplation, for questioning our ingrained assumptions, our dualistic minds, and for seeking truth rather with an open, receptive heart. One thing that we always do when we operate from the ego is harden our hearts. And that EQ is the very beginning of healing for whoever is looking for it. We start with letting go of our need for control, because we don't have any, if truth be told. And we move from IQ to EQ, opening our hearts again. When the heart is open, it's receptive. It can receive reality. And we start to really perceive something new, truth and reality, through mindfulness and presence. The contemplative Christ lived in an almost continuous state of profound presence. There was very little history in his story. It was all about presence. He wasn't dwelling on yesterday's troubles at all, or tomorrow's worries. And he knew what those worries were going to be. He was here, now, offering his full attention to the person in front of him, to the lessons at hand. Practicing real mindfulness helps us quiet that incessant, ego-driven chatter that we all have, and truly helps us connect with the present moment. Returning to presence is an absolute doorway out of anxiety, depression, powerlessness. Through contemplation, he challenged negative thoughts, negative thought patterns. Our minds are built in a certain way and can be a breeding ground for judgment, doubt, negativity, control. All products of ego are trying to protect itself. You see, the ego, the self-built persona, mask, or personality, knows it's going to die. It's not here for long. It's there to build you up so that you can set yourself free. It is a container for the first half of life. And like a worm, our metamorphosis turns us into a winged creature, someone who goes beyond the bounds of the controlling, judging, negative mind. When we do that, we start to perceive forgiveness, compassion, self-compassion, and passion for the world. And in the incredible power of positive intention, we start to be able to create something beautiful. We create beautiful selves. We create beautiful conversations, beautiful homes, beautiful families. By consciously choosing to cultivate our innate virtues, our higher virtues, we begin to dismantle the ego stronghold, brick by brick. And this we call the paradigm process, a spiritual journey from personality to spiritual reality. So the contemplative path is all about renewing the soul. It's a deep dive into our spiritual core, our essence of who we are, beyond our temporary personality. So to understand the contemplative mind, let's just quickly look at the personality, which is simply a mask we wear, an individual's unique patterns of thoughts, feelings, attitudes that over time become traits. And those traits become behaviors, the things we do. And in the end, they define how we interact and perceive the world. All your genes, all your genetics, environmental factors, your internal drives, and every thought and every emotion lumped together create that mask, that reflection of who we need to be to survive in a world where we need food, clothing, significance. We need to fit in. We need to stand out and shine. So we all have a fairly unique pattern of traits that develop a personality that helps us interact with the world. Some of us are more open, more conscientious. Some of us are extroverted or introverted. Some of us are high or low in agreeableness and neuroticism. But this mask was not built to last. In today's world, with a mental health crisis, that mask soon starts to smother us. You see, you weren't built to stay controlling, to stay neurotic, to stay a perfectionist or a people pleaser. No. To be like that for an eternity could be hell. We have 85,000 thoughts a day. The problem with those thoughts are that they're almost always the same thoughts that we had the day before, the week before, the month before. So contemplation is rather an act of deep thought about reality. It's about questioning the thoughts that we think constantly. Are they true? Are they really true? This questioning would have done us, as humanity, a great service in history. But history teaches us that we learn nothing from history. We don't see. We think, then act. We don't deeply feel. We don't contemplate. Otherwise, we wouldn't have had war after war after war. Enemy after enemy after enemy. This contemplation, this way of thinking, will really save the world, end racism, end the endless judgments that keep us feeling as though we're separate from each other, nature and God. Contemplation in some ways involves a concentration of the mind and soul on spiritual truths. It's about thinking and questioning our thoughts, beliefs, values, and experiences, which is something we won't automatically do. The mind loves shortcuts. It hates introspection because it thinks it'll find pain and suffering, a person who's not worth enough. The Contemplative Christ taught us about contemplation, which is really the art of being fully present and seeing reality clearly without the distortions of one's own ego, biases, and past experiences. It involves a deeper, non-dualistic way of thinking that leads to greater self-awareness, authentic living, and a compassionate connection to others and the divine. Just like Jesus' life, it was all about contemplative practice, is all about healing, personal transformation, and achieving an inner stillness, a peace that goes beyond understanding, an inner stillness that helps us understand the true nature of reality. So the contemplative mind is about being fully present to body, mind, and soul, allowing one's compassionate and creative self to emerge. It involves re-looking at reality, seeing it as it is, and letting go of our social constructs and past traumas that create a distorted view. The process of contemplation leads to a sacred path, into stillness, unexplained, where one can gain profound inner knowledge about themselves, others in the universe. So it's really the most powerful form of intelligence. IQ, then EQ, then CQ. By shedding the persona, the ego-driven false self, we can discover the true self, which will become the eternal self, leading to greater freedom, authenticity, belonging. So Jesus often retreated to solitary places for prayer and contemplation, to be still and to know God. And in that silence, he reconnected with the divine, renewing his spirit and gaining profound clarity, just like you and I can. How often do we truly allow ourselves moments of stillness today? Away from the noise, a time to listen to the whisper of our own soul, a soul that we try and avoid. That's the nature of the mind. That's what we need to overcome. And then there's the ultimate expression of the renewed soul, unconditional love and selfless service. Those are the traits of anybody who has had any kind of spiritual awakening or experience where they have understood that there are two minds and that they are not the thoughts that they think all day long. That's an awakening in itself. It's enough. Christ's entire life was a testament to this, showing us that true fulfillment doesn't come from what we accumulate, but from what we give. The world that is sleeping today is an accumulating world. We've accumulated land in the past. That's what wars have been fought for. For what? All the riches in the world. How will they serve us in the next life? But the mind cannot stop the billionaires today who work until their last breath, amassing fortunes, or so they think. We're not addicted to our drinking. We're addicted to our thinking and our thoughts, unless we're able to stop, contemplate life. When we do that, we nurture our own spiritual growth. The ego thrives on control. It wants to plan everything, predict everything, dominate everything. But the soul finds peace in trust and in surrendering to a higher power, a higher purpose. Christ's unwavering faith in his Father's will, even in the face of unimaginable suffering, which is how you might see the world today, is the ultimate example of this profound surrender. Letting go of the need to control everything allows us immense peace. Contemplation is not about retreating from the world into a monastery. It's about engaging with the world more authentically. It's about thinking, bringing a renewed mind and soul to our relationships, our work, our communities, the things we create. It's about remembering that our true identity lies far beyond the transient stories of our personality, our ego. In the eternal essence of who we are, we understand that we're connected to something far, far greater than ourselves. Everybody understands this. We all know this. So in a world which is like an endless sea of noise, a quiet invitation echoes through the centuries. It's a call not to a distant historical figure, but to an intimate, indwelling presence, the contemplative Christ. A Christ who taught us, actually, about inner resurrection from ego to soul. The one who walks on the waters of our own chaotic minds and bids us to come along, to connect and awaken to reality, just as it is, without the cognitive distortions of the persona. Jesus had an energetic vibration higher than anyone else who has ever walked the earth, and his power, wisdom, compassion, and contemplative intelligence are still changing the world today. That's true power. Many other highly energetic world changers have taught us how we're asleep to our human faculties and how awakening is essential. Gandhi, Buddha, Moses, and others have taught us about waking up. Whether you go into the jungles of India or into the streets of China or Japan, you will see people looking for silence, moving away from the humdrum, pursuits of a world that is growing in many ways that do not matter. They spend their time constructing the constructed self rather than escaping into the luminous landscape of the soul that is eternal, that is truly creative, boundless. So Christianity itself, just like everything else, is being threshed out and resurrected as a massive shift continues in the world today. The whole world is awakening to a new way of being. Everything is changing. And the evidence, the scientific evidence that we need is look at schools, universities, politics, look at religion. Everything is being threshed out, including you. And what's happening to you in your threshing out is that you're moving from your personality to spirituality. So it's all true. No matter which language you speak or which tradition you follow, it's all true. We're going through a metamorphosis process. We're moving from worm to butterfly, like everything else. Is there a better time to have been alive in history? Probably not. There's a lot going on. Magic, mystery, transformation. Who would have thought we had to give to receive? Love an enemy. Who would have thought the meek will come out tops? Who would have thought that the egoic world would build nothing? And people who pursued peace would be just like children saving the earth. God really is the ultimate therapist, and everyone is invited to undergo some kind of cognitive behavioral therapy with him, some CBT. He knew therapy would be necessary for everyone. In other words, the natural state, the first state of any human is shrouded in personality, in deceit, in masks. Yes, the mind lies to you and hides things from you, and no one is exempt. So an awakening, a kind of therapy process, which I call life, is necessary to allow us to become fully conscious, contemplative and aware of who we are, what is going on in our environment, what the universe is about, and where it's all going. Saying things like, love your enemy, really means absolutely nothing to the personality we develop. We can say it, but we don't mean it. We don't practice it, that's for sure. Christian, Jew, or otherwise, we practice harming our enemy. That's the nature of the frightened personality. Take the myth of Narcissus, for example. It's a tragic tale of mistaken identity. Narcissus was captivated by an illusion, a reflection he believed was real and ultimately wasted away. We face a similar spiritual danger when we fall in love with our own persona, the personality we protect. It's only a mask. So to discover the sacred self within, unlike Narcissus, we must turn away from the reflection. The paradigm process, creating a paradigm shift, total paradigm shift in how we perceive the world, is the path to do so, systematically removing the 10 masks of personality we all have to reveal the authentic soul or the sacred self. We are born into a world that hands us masks that we call our face. It's a gilded cage and some try and never take it off. What would you find underneath? Too scary, too frightful, shameful even. What would you find underneath that mask? Bearing your soul to the world, to yourself. But life will have its way. You see, that beautiful, shimmering mirage of who you first think you are is like water that can never quench a soul's deep thirst. The contemplative Christ, our great way shower, consistently pointed beyond this mirage. He came to earth to physical form at exactly the right time in history, not a minute too soon, nor too late. Too soon and we would not have grasped the little inklings of his teachings we are starting to only understand today, centuries later. A moment too late and our need for war on our neighbors would have ended us all, there and then. So his mystical and contemplative parables are love songs to the soul. See, the IQ couldn't understand his wisdom bombs, revealing the profound folly of clinging to the disintegrating and deceptive masks of wealth, status, and righteousness. People don't understand that's what he taught. And he taught with the authority of the elements, the wind, the rain, a selfless humility, a radical love that dissolves the boundaries of the small self, thank goodness. He invites us not to destroy the ego so wisely, but to gently set it aside and to see through it to the unadorned, essential beauty of the true self that was meant to be protected by that personality. So we don't do away with this ego, these masks, or this personality. We get to dissolve and include our personality into who we really are, that part of us that kept us alive in the first half of our lives. So this revealing of the self is simple. It's the very meaning of birth, death, and of course, resurrection. A mystical kind of raising back to life, but not of the body, rather of the mind. A mind that once conformed to its lower instinctual five-sensory worldview becomes, or is rather transformed, goes above and is made into a loving, communing, peaceful, and beautiful being. I keep quoting Dostoevsky on this because I truly understand it now. Beauty will save the world. Maybe St. Francis puts it better than I ever could. To be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. And here's the big one. It is in dying that we are born, raised, or awakened to eternal life, to contemplative seeing. So knowing that you have contemplative intelligence, higher thinking, meta thinking, is the first step of real change, awareness. Contemplative intelligence is our integrated capacity for meta thinking, the awareness of one's own thought process, really, to achieve wisdom, radical self-regulation, and a compassionate action by combining one's physical, emotional, and psychological and spiritual aspects all together. That's what yoga means, union. It brings together body, heart, mind. It involves deep reflection and mindfulness to understand one's internal states and motivations, leading to more thoughtful decisions at first, then better ethical considerations and a greater sense of freedom and authenticity. It's a wonderful thing to experience. Living a contemplative life was the plan. Practices like meditation, yoga, and even journaling can help cultivate contemplative intelligence. Gazing, stopping the mind, getting into the gap, moving into the space between stimulus and response, anywhere beyond calculating analytical thought, moves us to a deeper, integrated understanding of ourselves and reality. So contemplation itself, if you want to learn more about it, is what I call the sacred path to stillness and inner knowing, a practice that shifts perception to understand the divine in ourselves and the universe. The world is a beautiful place, not an awful place. Just look around. So we go from survival to self-actualization and transform from a limited mind to a truly awakened and intelligent state. Contemplation is a journey into deep inner stillness. It just allows for that connection, that communion with the divine, and gives us that profound sense of inner knowing. It's there. It's natural, spiritual, mystical. It involves recognizing the sacredness inherent in all things and at all times, shifting perception to a higher awareness. We start to see the sacred. We start transcending limitations. We move beyond the dualistic and ego-driven aspects of the mind. And this in turn leads us to transformation from that limited state to true intelligence, intelligence that doesn't harm. Think of all the best minds in Russia today. What are they doing with Ukraine and vice versa? Hundreds of minds, thousands of them, flinging bombs across a fence and hoping that when the bomb lands, flowers will come up. No, pain comes, suffering comes, until they do one thing, until they stop analyzing and calculating, until they stop hating, until they move away, as narcissists did, and begin to love who they think is their enemy. But their enemy is not over that fence, it's themselves. That was the teaching. So contemplative practice can really bring about physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual changes on a worldwide scale. So what we really need to remember about Christianity, teachings of God, is that He taught us to see reality not through the fractured lens of the persona, which thrives on that judgment and separation, but rather through the unified gaze of the heart, love, or the single eye, as some people call it, the eyes behind the eye. That's the game of life. You need to get there. Contemplative seeing is not seeing with the eye. As Jesus taught, the lamp of the body is the eye. If therefore your eye is good, your whole body will be full of light. So the lamp of the body is the eye. If therefore your eye is good, your whole body will be full of light. This good or single eye is the contemplative mind that sees with love and wholeness, illuminating our entire being and perception of the world. Thomas Merton believed that contemplation and action were inseparable, an idea he saw embodied in Jesus' life. We have to think and do and make those the same. If you're not awake, what you think is not what you do, and you don't even realize it. Isn't Putin thinking he's doing a marvelous and wonderful thing? Not to pick on Putin, he's going through the process of transformation himself. But the suffering and devastation remain until we awaken. Now, in the East, people do less action and more contemplation in certain ways, in their monasteries, in their temples. And in the West, we do vice versa. We do more action and far less contemplation. So either way is good. We need both a 0 and 1 in the binary systems that manage the cosmos. We need to think and do. We need to put our money where our mouth is and walk the line of transformation. So unlike most Christians that have gone before us, shouting, "Off with the enemy's head," the enemy we were slaying was ourselves. Time and time again, much like Cain and Abel, it just continued and perpetuated like it's doing today. We should have loved our enemy as we were taught, but we were conformed. We were blind, incapable. Today, the opportunity remains, and through contemplative seeing and the birth of the contemplative mind. Thank God, that is all changing. We are moving past the duality of racism, judgment, and ego. The world is changing. We're moving from fear to love. It's that simple. And it's happening. God wins, but only every time. So, how then do we accept this invitation to move beyond the ego and move into the heart? How do we actually do it? How do we go about this journey of tender renewal, or the alchemical process of turning the lead of our conditioning into the gold of our true nature? Remember, it's not an exercise of intellect, but an expansion of seeing. And Christ's wisdom was a radical revisioning of reality, a call to look with the eyes of the sacred self. So it's this practice of contemplative intelligence above lateral thinking, where we learn to witness the frantic stories of the mind without becoming entangled in them. And when we do that, we experience the grace of presence. We dissolve the inner critic. The mind can be a courtroom where our 10 ego insurgents or masks of the personality play judge and jury, condemning us and everyone else with thoughts of doubt, fear, and judgment endlessly. By consciously choosing to anoint our thoughts with compassion and grace, we actually begin to dismantle the ego's iron grip and allow a deeper, kinder wisdom to start to emerge. That's how we do it. So this is the deeper, quieter work, the descent into the heart that renews the soul. It's the journey from the head to the heart, IQ to EQ, from the surface to the source. It's about remembering that part of us that has never been wounded, never will be wounded, the divine, eternal spark that is our essence, yours and mine. Then there's the luminous silence. Christ so often retreated into that wild solitude of mountains in the desert. He knew that in the great silence, we could hear the whisper of our Creator. This is not an empty silence, but a luminous and pregnant stillness, pregnant with possibility, where the soul is nourished and our true name is spoken. All those biblical characters who found some kind of awakening had their name changed. I don't know if you noticed. To find these moments is to come home to ourselves. Today, these moments are essential for our sanity. End of story. We need to practice love as overflow today. The ultimate expression of a renewed soul is not striving, but an overflowing in abundance, really. The unconditional love, which is very, very powerful, and selfless service we see in Christ's life, is the natural consequence of a being connected to the infinite source of love. It is not something we do, but something we allow to move through us. So remember, it's in giving that we receive. It is in knocking that the door will be opened. By extending this current of compassion, we participate in the healing of the world. Each and every one of us is so important. We're all equally part of this divine play, this transformation on a universal scale. We must develop the courage of surrender. Courage meaning heart. So the ego's mantra, remember, is I control, and the soul's prayer is I trust. The surrender that we want you to go through to find your authentic self is not a passive giving up in any way. It's an active, courageous letting go into the arms of love that has been holding us all along. Christ's unwavering trust in the divine will, even to the cross, is the ultimate testament to this profound peace. Forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. Unbelievable. Beyond anything we could think. So this shift is the final release that sets us truly free. The awakened self knows that all manner of things are well. That's the secret to the universe. All is well. All is well, and all manner of things shall be well. But the frightened personality wants no part in that. The frightened personality spends all of its time running, fighting, flighting, and freezing. But now remember Romans 12:2, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is. His good, pleasing, and perfect will. This quote explains what the contemplative Christ taught us in a nutshell. If we conform to who we think we are, which is a 5-sensory human being with a personality that is doomed to die with very little meaning, we suffer terribly. But if we renew our minds, if we awaken to our contemplative intelligence, our seeing with the eyes behind the eyes, then we have passed the test, the trial of life. We will have confirmed God's will, which is to wake up at least once while we're still alive. So to embrace the contemplative Christ's teachings, we must just inhabit the world more deeply, more authentically. We must stop and smell the roses, contemplate reality exactly as it is, without those endless distortions, judgments, delusions. Walking the path with an open heart is about going to find a renewed mind that can soften your heart and affect all your relationships, your work, and eventually our communities. It is finally to understand that our true identity is not in the fleeting story of personality, but rather in the eternal, unnameable essence of our being, a being inextricably woven into the fabric of God. God's nature is love, and it's good. It's good news. It's all good in the end. So let this timeless wisdom be your guide. It's a path that leads not to a distant heaven, but to the heaven that lies within, waiting with infinite patience for your return. It is a journey into a profound life of peace, unshakable purpose, and a joy that the world cannot give and cannot take away. Namaste.